To my girls, gays, and days, it's your boy Nate. I read books because reading is sexy, and if you're not reading, you're not sexy. So go get sexy. It's time. I always say this, I feel like at the beginning, or at these wrap-ups, but like the months just keep going by so fast, and the old folks out there, they mean it when they say it. When they say that time speeds up in the later years of your life, and I just feel like I have no grasp of time anymore. And I'm gonna stop. I think I'm just gonna stop working within the confines of time. Time is spatial in a pool of water, and I think that's a coffee talking, so I'll stop here and will tell you what I read in the month of September. Perhaps my weakest reading month. I only read 8 books for September, only because I think 2 of the books were really big chunkers and made up most of my reading time, so. But yeah, let's get into it. Start the month strong with Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Y'all, I really wanted to be a Rooney hater. Was never really fixated or stirred by her work. Like, I think she's important for our time, and what she's trying to do with the miscommunication between her characters. But here she uses miscommunication in between 2 siblings over the death of their father and how both of them experience grief, how to move on from it and get on with their little lives. But it's her best work, I think. By the end, I was emotionally impacted by it. The hype is real. But yeah, if you've never done Rooney and feel a little too old for it, maybe, this one is good because it deals with siblingship and it's written so beautifully. Here you really see Rooney's skills sharpened, matured, and she hates hearing that in the recent New York Times interview with David Marchese, which is fantastic. Because did y'all know that you ruined Normal People for her? When she did the TV adaptation for Normal People, she hated like the fan craze surrounding Paul Mescal and Daisy, and then that's why she left Conversation with Friends, and that's why that's such a lackluster TV adaptation. And she won't do one for Beautiful World, Where Are You? And she won't do one for Intermezzo, because she's done with TV. TV is not her medium, and it was all y'all's fault. I blame y'all. I really do. What a shame. But also, things should exist in their proper format, and I'll get into that a little later with another book. But stellar work. I think anything after this will be incredible from Rooney. I think here she has found her voice and her themes and everything perfectly situated in a way that is all presented and articulated in a way where her next novels will be holistically her. And I'm really excited to see what she puts out. If anyone wants the one and done Sally Rooney, it's definitely this one. Calling it. But also Normal People is great too. So I think those 2 are quite stellar. But I feel like everything from Beautiful World, Where Are You? And sort of the inklings of that are better perfected in Intermezzo. Check it out. The hype is real, y'all. Without a doubt, it's ending up in my top 10. It's just a wonderfully crafted story that I think, I don't know yet. It might be a honorable mention, but there were some parts where I just felt like were a little too long. And Ivan's perspective, I think, though beautiful at times, it was kind of repetitive in a way, but I think those repetitions were important to disrupt sort of the lyrical prose that Rooney used for Peter's perspective. Yeah, so it's this like beautiful, odd and even flow of 2 different perspectives, of age, of mentality, and how we grapple with death. Next up, I had an e-arc of Set My Heart on Fire by your homegirl Izumi Suzuki. This is up by Verso Books, November 12th. It's Suzuki's debut novel, and it's okay. It's okay. It's not her greatest work. There's no sci-fi in it, but you do get her existential dwellings. It's also a beautiful grief piece, but it looks at Tokyo counterculture and rock culture as a subculture. And I don't think we ever get that enough in literature, or at least in the translated Japanese literature that I've encountered. I see it heavily in film a lot. When you look at those oddball Japanese films from the 70s and 80s, and they're all kind of reckless and hypersexual, and all of that is also here, where Suzuki is examining sexuality, the freedom of it, and the exploration of it through different kinds of people. Expats, as well as people who are part Japanese, part other, and for all us alien folks in the world who feel a bit alienated. It has a strong debut feel to it because the plot of it isn't really centered, and it feels a bit too loose, and wraps up a bit way too quickly in a way where the payoff doesn't really hit. With all that aside, I still think it's quite interesting in terms of a time capsule of Japan at the time. Yeah, if you like Suzuki, I definitely rec this. If you like sort of a fun, flirty, whimsical read, this one's for you. Next up, I did a buddy read. Did my fave, Sputnik Sweetheart, with the lovely Ross. Love you, Ross. But yeah, this is like my 6th or 7th time reading this, and I still love it. I'm a Murakami stan, and I still love this one to death. Yeah, we've got a man, in between two lesbian lovers. One of them disappears, and the other tries to find the other, and it becomes this beautiful look at identity, the big who and I, and the question of who am I, and how much of ourselves do we give in order to color, characterize, fulfill the needs and wants of others. I think this is Murakami's tightest work. Within 200 pages, you get all of Murakami's usual bits and bobs. Boobies. We got boobies. Murakami just really lays it flat for you with all of his characters and plot within the first few pages, and it just keeps going, and it's beautiful. And you're given an open-ended ending where in every single one of my readings, I've had a different interpretation, and all of the interpretations are valid, which I think makes this such a beautiful book. Okay, cat's out of the bag, y'all. But this is my reference book. This is my framework of the perfect novel. I revisit this in terms of construction, dialogue, character thoughts, and this is the framework of every single novel that I want to write. If I'm in a creative writing slump, I go to this book because I just think this is perfectly crafted. It's short, sweet, does what it needs to do, and tells a really fun, compelling story. If you need a one-and-done Murakami, this is it. Nothing else, though. One and done. One and done Murakami, folks. This is it. Nothing else, okay? Just this one. Because this is the perfect one. But yeah, love this dearly, still. And we'll probably reread it. And we'll probably reread it somewhere in the near distant future. But yeah, had a lovely time with Ross. Loved his thoughts. So glad that I put a fave on one of my faves. Yeah, go check out Ross. He's cool. And then I had to do another Murakami, y'all. We did The City and Its Uncertain Walls, translated by Philip Gabriel. And this is out by Knopf, November 19th. I read this in the woods. I decided just to not have my phone on, not have any notifications on, not talk to anybody, and just have this cute little camp out in the woods for the weekend with this book. And it was perfect. It was perfect in every sense as a Murakami fan. I think this is a bit hard to get into for anyone who hasn't experienced Murakami's work, but for hardcore stans, this one's fine. This one's fun. It's his pandemic baby, and it really encapsulates the very loneliness of the pandemic. But what you have is a guy who's ruminating on this little love that he had at 16 or 17 with this girl. It's that revisitation of memory, the constant revisitation of it, that it almost becomes dream. And so he goes into this other realm where there are walking unicorns and this library of dreams where he just spends all day looking at other people's dreams, looking at his own dreams and looking at his own life. And it's really reflective in the same way where I feel like Hayao Miyazaki's The Wind Rises and The Boy and the Heron are reflective, because it's looking at legacy, it's looking at past work, but it's also looking at life. Murakami is looking at his own life and work, where here it's entirely himself. It's a world we know so well, but I think it's also his loneliest work. He captures loneliness so beautifully, though I think it lingers and wanders in places where I don't think it really needs to, and for way too long, kind of in the same way as like 1Q84, which is too long. This is a lot slower. It feels like one of those 3-hour-long Ryusuke Hamaguchi films. It's just a really quiet, still book where I could hear the refrigerator humming or the sound of white noise, all of that. Do I think it's his greatest? No, but I think it's his strongest in terms of conveying loneliness. Yeah, for people who haven't, are well equipped with the Murakami world, maybe stay away from this one. Don't do this one, do maybe Killing Commendator. I feel like Killing Commendator is a lot more action-packed than, say, this one. But yeah, as a stan, I stan. Next up, I had another E-arc. I had the Italy letters by Vi Khi Nao. This is out by Melville House. It's already out, actually. It was out in August. Y'all, I think it's just way too much to unpack, but I'm just gonna say it short and sweet. This is ending up in my top 10. This is just everything I love in literature. It's an epistolary novel about a Vietnamese writer in Vegas writing letters to this far-off lover about the fraught relationship between mother and daughter, financial hardship, sexuality, gay, what the body means, depression, unaliving yourself, a slew of other things. And that sounds heavy, but there are just lines in here where that just like made me laugh out loud, like in such a weird, wild way. So there's this levity to it where you get the super serious. And I think the work itself is a bit too serious, but it plays itself out as melodrama when you have these like really ridiculous lines like, his dick was a long train ride, the kind of train you want to get off, but you can't because you can't seem to find its exit point. In between, like, not wanting to be alive. It's the kind of book that I don't know how to quite describe it, where there's this really weird gray space in the absurdity of life where you don't know whether to laugh or to cry. And so this book just entirely tethers between that, but also being so lonely because it is written in the epistolary form. So when you write a letter, you are ultimately writing to yourself, sent, unsent. It's first and foremost for your voice to land on the page and to be out. And that entire experience is so lonely. Biased as well from my own background because it is also a Vietnamese narrative. And I make a note about this in a future vlog, so watch out for that. It's a 5-star read for me. It's ending up in my top 10. It's one that should be talked about more, but also it's my quiet fave. Like, I love this book so much. It hit me hard. Made quite a mark on me. But it's like also a book that I don't think a lot of people would like because it's just so odd and a lot. But it's the very kind of book that I love. Okay, we got some physicals. Next up I did Walking Through Clear Water in a Pool Painted Black, collected stories by homegirl Cookie Mueller, The Dirty Babbitts. Grim, grimy, glamour. These are wonderful stories. They're the kind of stories that you hear from a really good friend at the end of the bar, and they're sultry, they're wild. You're like, why are you doing this? You doing it for the plot? I don't think we have women like this much more anymore. The only person I can think of is Julia Fox, that have these like really outlandish stories. This is also a love letter to John Waters, and you really get to see how much of his work and her life as an actress involved with his work, that you get these spiraling crazy stories. You also get like really whimsical bits with the life that she did live. She has a lot of wisdom, really beautiful wisdom too. Gravity is burden. The act of being alive certainly is an oppressive job. We haul the mass with each step. Is there any way to lessen the anguish of gravity? And she lists 6 things: love, philosophy, religion, creativity, culture, and humor. She gets into it all. But I love that she lands with humor because these stories have a lot of humor to them, even though they're kind of deep and dark, and the situations that she was involved with. And I love that. I think humor as a weapon, as modern defense, is much needed when you go through hell. What's that line again about the most troubled people are the most funniest ones? Robin Williams. Humor is just a way we make it through the day sometimes, and this is proof of that. A wonderful collection, They read quite quickly too. I'm surprised how quickly I read this because I was kind of afraid. It's kind of heavy, but it's great for in between your reads, and highly rec it if you are a John Waters stan, want to know more about your homegirl Cookie Mueller. Okay, and then next up, I did Big Swiss Jen Beagin. Y'all, in a future vlog, I went on a rant about this, so I'm not gonna repeat myself and do it here. But this heavily reminds me of Chelsea G. Summers, and I did not like A Certain Hunger. I think because it's just in the wrong medium. Jen Beagin, come on, got her MFA at UCI. Y'all, UCI is not the school for writing. I'm sorry. I know Steven Spielberg came from Long Beach, but he has the chops, and he's proved he's got good chops. There are no good chops here. This is fine, it's fun. I love how quick it reads as well, only because it ends up just feeling like an okay TV show that A24 produced. And I think A24 is producing it as so. So I think this just shouldn't have been a book. Sometimes, oh my god, why did I say that? Like, sometimes things work in better mediums and they should just exist within that medium. Sometimes there are complementary pieces that work alongside beautifully. The Shining, for example. Kubrick's The Shining and Stephen King's The Shining, two different works if you really think about it, but they're both beautiful in that they tell the same story, just looking at different things. I just didn't find this funny at all. I think because the way it's written on the page, it just doesn't land. But if you had an actress to deliver these lines, a good actress, I think Aubrey Plaza to play Greta, who is a transcriber for a sex coach that transcribes all of the private conversations in between them and the patient. Eventually she falls in love with this patient named Big Swiss. But yeah, I just didn't find it funny, and I think that's because of delivery. So I think if you had someone like Aubrey Plaza who works in that weird, like, can be funny but also can be serious, would work really well, I think, as Greta. Upon further reflection, I don't think this book was hyped. I think it was just like really polarizing. You either really love it or you really hate it. And actually, I sat somewhere in between the middle. Like, I would just appreciate this a lot more as like a TV dinner show. You know, the kind of TV dinner show where you eat your dinner while watching the show for like 10 minutes, done with your dinner, and then you half watch it while you wash the dishes or fold laundry, that kind of thing. Entertaining, fine, fun, no other thoughts. Okay, last book of September is Drift, a novel by Jim Miller. This was sent to me by my friend back home, so thank you. There is a word in here that they used in the introduction. Why can't I find it? There it is. In the introduction, written by the novelist himself, describes this as a psychogeography of San Diego, and there's no better word for that. I think what this is really searching for the meaning of life, but within the confines of San Diego as setting and as memory. It's almost too personal of a book, but you really get to see where Miller's interests are in poetry and film. Great mention of Neruda and who did Citizen Kane? Orson Welles. But yeah, it's heavily inspired by different kinds of art with a guy named Joe Blake. And he falls in love with this single mother named Teresa Sanchez. And yeah, really looks at San Diego. I think I mentioned before, I never read a lot of San Diego literature, but this is kind of wonderful in a way. You can kind of see how San Diego was gentrified because it's also split up with flashbacks of the making and history of San Diego as well. Yeah, it's really poignant in a thinky kind of way. It reminds me a lot of Richard Linklater's Waking Life, how it kind of drifts and wanders in between the idea of living in America and also what you want to make out of life, but trapped within San Diego. Thank you to my friend for sending this over. I thought this cover was appropriate in preparation of spooky season. Y'all, that was September for me. Let me know what you read in September. Any banger out there that I need to know of? Do I need to add anything to my never-ending TBR? Let me know. As always, I'm a Blackwell's affiliate, so if you enjoyed me talking about any of these books, Please consider using my affiliate link downstairs to grab any of these books or for any of your other bookish needs. I love Blackwell's because they offer free shipping, and I love free shipping. If it's free, it's for me. Be well, do good work, keep in touch.